So we're in day number 2 of the tampering period. Actually, the last day of the tampering period. We will have the start of the new league year at 4 p.m. tomorrow Eastern Standard Time. So I just really got one question for you. Your team got any free agents? Who else could it be but me, your Louie T? Welcome to the 146th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. I am accompanied by my good main man, Ramon, as we get it on and pop it at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, another nighttime podcast. As I wanted again to just allow things to accumulate throughout the course of the day, see if anything big happened. There was a point in the day where I thought, I probably don't need to do a video. I'll just wait until Wednesday and do my normal slot Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But then things started to ramp up during the evening time. We saw a lot of names come off of the board, including another member of my top 23 free agents. So I said, what the hell? I'm going to jump on here and break down day number 2 of the tampering period. So we'll do that again today and talk about a few positions in particular. We'll talk about all the transactions that have taken place of note in day number 2 of this tampering window. And as we prepare for the start of the new league year, teams are still scrambling, trying to get under the cap. I think most teams have done all of the work that needed to be done to get themselves under that $182 million, I think it's $182.5 million salary cap. And I think what you're going to see is what we've seen already in certain markets. You're going to see that bubble burst. And I think we've seen that with the receiver position. A lot of these guys thought they were going to get a lot of money, and it's just not out there for them. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show as well. But before we even get into the proceedings this evening, I have a super chat, so I want to go ahead and knock that out. This super chat is from Joshua Farish. Thank you for the super chat, Joshua. Greatly appreciate you. My man Joshua writes, Ron's plan is to go with the 3 quarterbacks, Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen, and Ryan Fitzpatrick, and do the Kansas City/Seattle team building strategy. I mean, you can look at it one of two ways. If you're trying to do the Kansas City Chiefs thing, then you need a steady quarterback. You know, Alex Smith was there for 4 or 5 years before Patrick Mahomes got there, and they won the division multiple times, and they were a good football team, but they just weren't good enough to win in the postseason with Alex Smith as their quarterback. They blew a 34-7 lead to the Indianapolis Colts in Wild Card Weekend. They blew a 21-3 lead to the Tennessee Titans. They couldn't beat the Pittsburgh Steelers despite the Steelers not scoring a single touchdown in the game. They just didn't have enough with Alex Smith at quarterback, and they realized that. And so that prompted them to go and get Patrick Mahomes, trade all the way up, go get him, and have him be the heir apparent. The Seattle model is totally different. They never had a guy that was steady. Matthew Hasselbeck was there way before Russell Wilson got there. They went through a steady diet of bums at quarterback, including, may God rest his soul, Tavares Jackson, among other guys that were just going through the motions. They remember that same offseason in 2012 that they drafted Russell Wilson. They went out and signed Matt Flynn to be the new guy in Seattle before Russell Wilson coming in preseason and in training camp and taking over and winning that job and never looking back. So they had no plans at the quarterback position. Don't tell me that they knew Russell Wilson was the future, because if they did, they wouldn't have drafted him in the 3rd round. So they just figured Matt Flynn's going to be the guy. Maybe this Russell Wilson kid has something. We'll let him sit and learn, and maybe he'll get an opportunity down the road. And he wowed them and showed them that, hey, you got a gem here, diamond in the rough in the 3rd round. And so they got lucky is essentially what they did Seattle. But they were trying to build the infrastructure of what they had, but they still didn't have the quarterback position right. So we're more like Seattle than we are Kansas City. Kansas City actually had a viable option at quarterback for multiple years before getting Mahomes. We're not there yet. We don't have a viable option. Just 2 years ago, we were finagling around and fumbling around with Case Keenum at quarterback. And Dwayne was here last year making a mockery of things. And we know what the quarterback situation was a season ago. So, again, we're not Kansas City. We're more like Seattle. But the plan is to continue to build this thing. And I told you what I want. I want to build this thing and then drop the quarterback in the middle. And if they feel like Ryan Fitzpatrick helps them do that, so be it. You know, I don't like the move. I told you that already. But I don't know what the rationale is. Maybe it is exactly what you said. Just continue to build with a veteran that's going to give you a chance in ball games. We know the track record of Ryan Fitzpatrick already. We know what fitty is at this point. All right, I've already chronicled that. But if they feel like he gives them the best opportunity, if they think that's Kyle Allen, if they think that's Taylor Heineke, we'll see who they ultimately go with, who wins the job. But Ron has said he wanted competition, and that's what he's going to get this offseason and into training camp. So we'll see what ultimately happens at the quarterback position for Washington. But you know what? That is a perfect segue, Joshua. Thank you for the super chat. As we go ahead and transition right into our gem dropping session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, LouieTeE. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So, Joshua just brought up the quarterback position, and he talked about Ryan Fitzpatrick being in Washington, and that's where I want to start this show, is in free agency. The quarterback market was already very thin to begin with, and it's generally not very robust anyhow, because if you've got a quarterback worth a damn in this league, he's not going to hit free agency. That's generally how this works. If you've got a guy that's half decent, you're going to lock him up. The good teams realize that. Obviously, Washington didn't understand that concept when they allowed Kirk Cousins to move on. But generally speaking, I don't care how elementary that quarterback may seem, and you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're in the quarterback wilderness. Now, you may be looking to upgrade all the while having a quarterback, which is what the smart teams do. So if you don't want Kirk Cousins in your Washington, you should be working the back channels trying to figure out how you're going to upgrade the position. You don't wait until after you've moved on from that guy to then make a trade that makes you seem desperate to bring Alex Smith on board. So what you saw the Los Angeles Rams do is essentially what you do if you think you need an upgrade. You don't panic, all right? You wait and you take a look at the scenery, you figure out what you can do, and then you quietly make a move and you move on, and that's what they did going and acquiring Matthew Stafford. The 49ers have been doing the same thing. They've been looking to upgrade the quarterback position. They are not going to turn Jimmy G loose without having another guy already to take his place. They can't find that guy. They were sniffing around, believe it or not. They were sniffing around Andy Dalton, and Andy Dalton saw the writing on the wall. Like, look, if I really want a real shot at starting, if the two options are Chicago and San Francisco, I probably should go to Chicago, where there is no quarterback entrenched. If I go to San Francisco, Jimmy G's the guy, and I'm going to have to beat him out, and he knows the offense, and they like him enough to make him the starter. I'm probably going to be a backup there. So he knew what was best for him if he wanted an opportunity to start. So he took the opportunity in Chicago. So I want to go through the list of the quarterbacks that were available in free agency. They're all gone for the most part. All the ones worth talking about. I mean, there's still some guys available. Chase Daniel was released by the Detroit Lions. You can add him to the mix, but that list of quarterbacks now has shrunk to pretty much next to nothing that's available, nothing that you want. Okay, so there are about 5 or 6 guys on the market that, you know, was worth having a conversation about, whether it was in a backup capacity or a starting capacity. And those quarterbacks were Ryan Fitzpatrick, Jacoby Brissett, Tyrod Taylor, Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, and Cam Newton. Every single one of those guys after the second day of the tampering window has found a new home, essentially. So, and let me repeat this again, none of these deals are finalized until the start of the new league year tomorrow after 4 p.m. So none of this stuff is etched in stone, but for the most part, these verbal agreements are pretty much going to take place, more likely than not. So Ryan Fitzpatrick, we talked about this ad nauseum last night, signed a 1-year, $10 million deal in Washington. That deal can get upwards of $12 million with incentives. Jacoby Brissett signed a 1-year, $5 million deal in Miami with the Dolphins to back up Tua Tagovailoa. So he's essentially taking the Ryan Fitzpatrick position that Fitzpatrick vacated when he hit the market this year. Jacoby Brissett is going to take his spot and be the veteran presence behind Tua. If he struggles again, they'll go and turn to Jacoby Brissett. Tyrod Taylor was in Los Angeles with the Chargers last year. Remember, he was supposed to be the stopgap for Justin Herbert. He gets injured after week 1. He has a shot that he was supposed to take to give him an opportunity to play in week number 2. That shot was executed poorly, to say the least, and punctured a lung. He had to go to the hospital. Justin Herbert nearly upsets the Super Bowl defending champion Kansas City Chiefs. The rest is history. So he's now in Houston on a 1-year, $12.5 million deal. If I had to guess, that's the only figures that we've been thrown for that contract. If I had to guess, his contract probably looks similar to the one Jameis Winston got in New Orleans. We'll talk about that here in a second. But Andy Dalton, I just talked about his situation and really the decision that it came down to for him, San Francisco or Chicago. He chose the opportunity that was going to give him the best chance to start, and that was in Chicago, going up against Nicholas Foles. And so Andy Dalton took a 1-year, $10 million deal that can get up to 13, with incentives. And a lot of that is going to be tied to playtime, wins, and do they make it to the postseason more likely than not. Jameis Winston, we know about this one. We talked about it last night on the show. New Orleans, a 1-year, $5.5 million deal can get up to $12.5 million with incentives and bonuses. I think that's what the Tyrod Taylor deal in Houston probably looks like, more like a base of $5.5 million, and then incentives can push it up to $12.5. In Tyrod's case, I think it's around 5.5, and it'll get to 12.5 with incentives. But that hasn't been released, but that's my guess. I'm speculating that that's what the Tyrod Taylor deal looks like. And then and Cam Newton, obviously, New England, 1-year, $5.1 million base, but it can get to $13.6 million with incentives and bonuses. So those were your quarterbacks. One of these situations, one of these signings, to me, trumps the rest in terms of interest. And, you know, it's funny, Ron Rivera has this quote that he uses very often. And he said, he always talks about not wanting to talk about what's interesting, but wanting to talk about what's important. And for me, the important signings are Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's going to have a legitimate chance to start in Washington. Obviously, Jameis Winston going to have a legitimate chance to start in New Orleans. Cam Newton, I think, is going to start, barring some kind of, catastrophe happening in New England, or for him it'd be a catastrophe. For them, it'd be some kind of stroke of luck that allows them to have a quarterback fall into their lap. He's going to probably be your starter in New England, and Andy Dalton's going to have an opportunity in Chicago. Miami, Jacoby Brissett knows he's the backup there, but anything can happen. The one that's interesting, not important, is interesting, is Tyrod Taylor. And so here's why Tyrod Taylor is interesting to me, because this deal that the Texans signed him to, this is, to me, and I put this out on Twitter, this is a chicken type of deal that they signed him to. Essentially, they're saying, hey, Deshaun, I don't know if you noticed, but we've been extremely active in free agency. We can field a team without you this season. If you come and you play, we might actually have a chance to be decent. If you don't, we still got a guy. Okay, because we were all looking around like, what the hell are you going to do at quarterback? You got nothing. Well, now we got a guy. So if you don't want to play, guess what? We don't have to trade you. You can sit out. And I said this. This is a situation, this signing of Tyrod Taylor feels like their way of saying, we got a guy. In case you want to act foolish, we got a guy. We're not trading you. We're not moving on from you. Either you can play or you can go home. But if you go home, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Just so you know. So if you want to play this game of chicken, and I said it's an M measuring contest. That's what this all amounts to in Houston. It's an M measuring contest. Not a D measuring contest, an M measuring contest. It's a money measuring contest, okay? Who's got the longest money? My money is on the old white guys. They usually win these battles, okay? So if you think you're gonna outlast me, I got the bread. I'm not going anywhere. It's just like when the little guy tries to sue the big corporation and they want to string it out because they got lawyers on retainer, and so they can go for days, months, years if need be. They can string this thing out as long as they need to. You, on the other hand, you don't have the kind of bread that's going to stretch and allow you to keep that lawyer on retainer and continue to pay lawyer fees. And they know that. And that's why they drag these things out. That's how the Texans are looking like. They're looking like they're ready to play the long game here. Hey, man, if you really want to do this, we ready. We want all the smoke because we're not trading you. We hold all the cards here. You got no control, bruh. You run nothing. And I told you, Cal McNair strikes me as one of these dudes that is going to dig his heels in, and Jack Easterby seems to be the same type of guy. Dig their heels in and say, hey, bruh, we're not succumbing to any pressure from you, man. You don't run this, we run this. Either you're playing or you're not playing. But you're going to play for the Texans if you're going to play. And so this Tyrod Taylor signing to me says, hey, you don't want to play? That's cool. We got a guy. Now, Tyrod may only last for 2-3 weeks because we know Tyrod's one hit away from being on the shelf. But they're saying, in case of you trying to play us, we got a guy. I find that interesting, but the quarterback market, as I mentioned, very, very slim pickings, usually every single year. Last year was an anomaly. There were a lot of guys available, including Tom Brady. But this year is like most years. What you're getting is a bunch of journeyman quarterbacks, guys that you really don't want starting, but if you don't have a choice, you do what you got to do. It's no different now, and all of those guys are essentially gone now, with Andy Dalton ending up in Chicago and Jacoby Brissett ending up in Miami and Tyrod Taylor going to the Texans. The quarterback position, for all intents and purposes, is all wrapped up. So I found the Tyrod Taylor situation interesting, however, but I just wanted to talk about that. That really made me smile when I saw that come across the timeline earlier this evening. So I got some more super chats, so I'm gonna knock these out real quick. I got one from Chauncey Davis. Thank you for the super chat, Chauncey Davis. My man Chauncey writes, Lou, woosah, on the Fitz signing, your color changed on the 145 episode. Trust in Ron. No, it didn't change. It didn't change. I told you that my seat is still buckled. My seatbelt is still buckled in. I'm still in the seat right next to Ron. I'm still riding with him. I just told you I didn't understand what we were doing. But I already said he's not going to bat 1,000. And a lot of people disagree with me on this, and that's fine. We're not supposed to agree on everything. I've already stressed this to you guys. I don't want minions. I don't want robots. I want people that can think for themselves. And so I don't want you just going along with everything that I say. I want you to challenge me. I want you to have your own opinions, and I want you to think for yourself. And a lot of people say, dude, you're tripping. All right, there's no way that this is a terrible move, especially looking at what we had at quarterback last year. And I'm like, I understand what you're saying, but this was the whole conversation I had about not just being so starved at the quarterback position that you're willing to consume anything. You're willing to eat anything. Like, if you listen to some of these fans, And there's certain like a certain allotment of you, a certain pocket of you that are like, look, I don't like this shit any more than you do, but I get it, and it's better than anything else that was out there. To you, I say, I don't agree, number one, but I understand where you're coming from. But there are certain sectors of the fan base that are excited about going 7-9 and losing with Ryan Fitzpatrick because it's going to be, quote unquote, exciting. And there's certain sectors of the fan base that are excited about this because we're going to all of a sudden push the ball down the field and it's going to be fun to watch. And I'm like, who gives a shit about any of that if you're still losing ball games? And what to the much larger point that I continue to bring up is he's 38 and there's no future with this. And so 7-9 is going to put us right back in the same damn spot we're in this year. So unless if you don't love any of the quarterbacks and you don't think you can get up and get one of the guys, whatever, you're going to have to do the same thing next year. You're going to have to go up and get a guy. Because Ryan Fitzpatrick, if he is what we think he is, and he's 16 years, body of work already, we know exactly what he is. You're not winning 3 games with Ryan Fitzpatrick. If he starts 8-9 games, you're not going to win just 3 games. You're going to win 4 or 5 of those games. And if you've already won 1 or 2 prior to that, you're going to end up 6-11 or 7-10 or something along those lines. And that's going to net you the 14th, 15th, 16th pick in the draft. That's essentially what you're going to have, and you're going to be out of that range of getting one of those quarterbacks again, which is my point. What are we doing? So I haven't changed. I haven't soured on Ron. I'm not one of these clowns on Twitter or socials that are talking about fire Ron Rivera, fire Marty Herney, fire, Martin Mayhew. That's not me, okay? I'm going to watch this thing play out. I don't agree with it. You know that. I've already stressed that. I don't agree with the move. But I support everything that they do. I don't have to like it, and I'm going to tell you if I don't like it. But once you're a member of the family, I open my arms and I embrace you. I tell you guys this all the time. I don't have to like the decisions that are being made, but I'm not in control of anything. All I can do is continue to root for the team. Sometimes it's frustrating when things happen the way that they do. You don't like what's going on, but all you can do is continue to support. So I'm going to do that. You know what it is, but I'm still not moving off the spot. I hate this move. I don't think there's any purpose behind it. No real value, true value behind it. But as people have said to me, you don't know if he's going to win the job or not. And they're right. We don't know if he's going to beat out Kyle Allen and, Taylor Heineke or not. He may not beat either one of those guys out. He could be the 3rd string quarterback for all we know. I doubt that, seriously, by the way. But we don't know. So thank you for the super chat, Chauncey Davis. I got another one here from John Livingston, my man JL Smooth. Thank you for the super chat as always. I hope you had a good night's rest. I know I didn't do a great job of contributing to that, but hopefully you had a great night's rest. He says, the more I thought about it last night, Lou, I actually agree with you on Fitz. I will always root for the guy, but then I asked myself if I would want him starting for my team. Hard pass. And that's all I'm saying is you've experienced him before. The ups, the downs, the highs, the lows. You know that there's going to be a game where he's going to go off. He's going to go bonkers. He's going to throw for 398, 4 touchdowns, maybe no interceptions, maybe 1 interception. We're going to score 42 points. Everybody's going to be like, this guy's amazing. And then the very next week, he's going to throw 4 interceptions and we're going to score 13 points. We're going to get our doors blown off. And everybody's going to say, what the hell happened to the guy the week before? That's Ryan Fitzpatrick. We know this to be a fact. We've watched it for 16 years. And that's the thing that is frustrating is because there's so many fans in the Washington fan base that are so starved for a quarterback that they'll consume anything that's being fed to them. And right now, they're getting excited about a 38-year-old journeyman quarterback who hasn't won anything in this league, has never led a team to the postseason, and isn't a winner. He's fun. He's going to play hard. I've acknowledged all of those things. He's not going to change our fortunes. I strongly believe that. And I can't say that definitively. Okay, I can't say that with 100% certainty, but I can say it with a 99.9999% certainty. Okay, I can't say it with 100% because there is the one-off chance that we catch lightning in a bottle and Ryan Fitzpatrick finds a way to not turn it over. There's always that off chance that a guy has that 1 year where he doesn't turn it over. And there was a quarterback like that. I forgot who it was, but he had that one season where he didn't turn it over. He was outstanding and his team won a bunch of ball games. It could happen. Highly unlikely in year 17. That's all I'm saying. But you get it. You get it, JL. I mean, come on, you get it, John. As you said, you wouldn't want him starting for your team. You've been there, done that, okay? So that's all I'm saying. Enigma RJ, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Enigma RJ writes, I don't know about you, Lou. I'm tightening my seatbelt. It seems like Ron is dozing off behind the wheel. Too much drinking on his vacation, I guess. I told you yesterday I was tightening up the seatbelt. I was yanking it just to make sure it was in there secure. I made sure I pulled on the buckle to make sure that it was locked in. I made sure I heard that click to make sure that thing wasn't going to just come out. Just to make sure. You know, you always want to check all of the different contraptions to make sure that they're in place the way that they're supposed to be, so you're going to be protected in case of an accident, and upon impact you're going to be secure and not flying through the windshield. So I'm not waffling on Ron. I told you nobody bats 1,000. I talked about the baseball analogy last night. Nobody bats 1,000 at this thing. You know, you're gonna have some outs, you're gonna have some strikeouts, you're gonna hit into a double play. I've already said that I think this is a mistake, and I think this is a double play ball. The question is it first and third, no outs, double play, and a run scores? Or is it first and no, is it first and second, no outs, or first and second, one out, double play, end of the inning? That's the real question. Are we going to get a quarterback that he can mentor, or are we not? And that to me is the last piece of the puzzle for me right now. But again, I'm not moving on Ron. I still support him. I still think he's doing a fantastic job, and so I'm just going to continue to go with the flow of things in Washington right now. Joshua Farish, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Joshua is doubling up. I had to make sure that was you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Joshua. Greatly appreciate you. My man Joshua Farish writes, speaking about Gem Droppin, maybe a QB can drop to us in the later rounds. By the way, I've heard that we are close to getting Stafford by the Rams, but the Rams ruined that. I really think that Matthew Stafford wanted no parts of Washington. I can't confirm that. Can't deny that either. But I don't think he wanted any parts of Washington. If you ask me, I think he had a list. He acknowledged this. Now, he wouldn't divulge the teams on the list, but he did disclose that, hey, I had a list of teams I told Detroit I don't want to go to. New England was one of them. He did acknowledge that, but he wouldn't give us the other teams. I think we were on that list. I really think we were on that list, but I could be wrong. But he's been with the dysfunctional organization for his entire career. I don't think he wanted to go from one dysfunctional organization to, even though the other one is trying to fix their ills and cure some of those woes, he doesn't want to be a part of that process. Been through one, seen them all. He doesn't want to go through that process again. So we'll see. I said this yesterday. A lot of people keep talking about the 19th pick and that being where you got to get a quarterback. That's not necessarily true. It doesn't have to be 19 or 51. It could be in the third round that you decide, hey, we like one of these guys. We're going to take them here. We got 2 third rounders. It wouldn't shock me if they said, we're going to take a quarterback here, a young guy, and just see if he develops into anything. We'll see. I don't know what's going to happen with Washington or the quarterback position for that matter. Thank you for the super chat and doubling up, Joshua Farish. Got another super chat. This one is from HTTR Lot. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. HTTR Lot writes, Fitzpatrick will be the Redskins' 23rd quarterback to start since 2000. I don't care who my quarterback is at this point. I done seen it all as a fan, hashtag 757. And that's sad. The fact that you don't really care who the quarterback is. It's sad because you should care. That's the most important position in the sport. I've contended that it's the most important position in all of sports. You should care who's manning that position for your favorite football team. You should care. And the fact that you are so jaded at this point that you really don't give a damn who's under center. Seen one, seen them all. They all look the same to you. They all stink. That's problematic. And it is, to me, a microcosm of what we are as an organization, what we've been. And if you want to take a step back and take a macro approach, and you can say that's what we've been under Daniel Snyder. You want to take a micro approach, you say that's part of the reason that the fan base is so excited about Ryan Fitzpatrick, or some of the people in the fan base. Not everybody is excited about Ryan Fitzpatrick because they don't know any better. It's been so bad around here that anything will do. And that's problematic, but that's where we are. It's a sad state of affairs, but that's where we are. Thank you for the super chat, HTTR a lot. Got another one here from Vincent Coe. Thank you for the super chat, Vincent Coe. Greatly appreciate you, my man. Vincent Coe writes, I don't get what the Seahawks are doing. We don't sign or re-sign any players. We only have 4 picks. Are we contenders still, or are we rebuilding? Shaking my head. You know what the Seahawks are going to do. You know what this is. They're going to trade back 18 times in the draft. They're going to end up with 9 to 11 picks, all of which are in rounds 5 through 7. Come on, man. You've been a fan of that team long enough to know what the hell they're up to. They traded away those number ones because they don't give a shit about number 1 picks. We've talked about that already. They're going to move back in the draft 3 times. You're going to look up and you're going to go from 4 draft picks to like 9 or 10 draft picks. And they're all going to be in rounds 5 through 7. There's going to be 3 in round 5, 4 in round 6, and another 3 in round 7. And you're going to look up and you got 10 guys that you drafted, and they're going to be so damn happy because they love the late round guys. That's what they do in Seattle. Are you a contender? As long as you got Russell Wilson, you got a damn shot. The problem is, unless you're going to continue to surround him with talent, which is why he's been so frustrated, especially along the offensive line, unless you're going to surround him with enough talent to do something, it's not going to be enough in the NFC. And we've seen the NFC get stronger and stronger. Even though you're losing Drew Brees, now with Tom Brady in town, shit's not getting any easier with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers being what they are. We see what the Packers have done the last 2 years. Expect the 49ers, if the defense is healthy, to get back to where they were. The Cardinals are coming, okay? They're coming. We've been holding them off for the last 2 years. I think this is the year they finally break through, make the postseason. Now the Rams have Matthew Stafford. You see where I'm going with this. The NFC isn't getting any easier. So if the Seahawks are going to figure this thing out, they're going to have to speed up the process. You're going to lose a Shaquille Griffin. Do you have somebody ready to take his place? If the answer is no, then you're taking a step back defensively. So one of the biggest issues was you couldn't get pressure on the quarterback. Did you fix that? Unless one of these young guys you have drafted over the last couple of years, I didn't agree with the first round pick of the TCU kid. You drafted the kid from Syracuse. I want to say it was last year, maybe the year before. I actually like him a lot. Unless one of these guys, Alton Robinson, is that Syracuse kid. I think he was in the 3rd or 4th round. Unless one of these guys are going to step up, you got nothing on the defensive line that scares anybody. There's going to be some issues with Seattle, and it's going to come to a head if they don't figure some things out. And you're losing your running backs. Carlos Hyde already signed somewhere else. Doesn't seem like Chris Carson's going to be back. I hope, you drafted the kid out of Miami last year, DJ Dallas. I guess you think he's going to be ready to take over. We'll see. There's a lot of questions in Seattle. The same cast of characters at the receiver position are going to be there. I thought they were going to do something at tight end like Zach Ertz or something like that. I don't know. Jacob Hollister is going to be gone. I want to see what the hell the Seahawks are going to do. I'm interested because Russ made it known that he's not happy. This isn't an offseason that gets you excited thus far. But again, a lot of time to go. And if there's one thing we know the Seahawks do really well, I must admit this, and you too have to admit this as a Seahawks fan, Vincent, is that they develop players well. 5th rounders, 6th rounders, 7th rounders, undrafted guys, they get the most out of guys that everybody else decided wasn't good enough. So they do a really good job of developing talent. We've seen what DK Metcalf has morphed into. They do a really good job of taking guys and getting the most out of them. So if anybody can say, hey, we're good, we'll move back 3 times and we'll pick up a bunch of late round draft capital and turn those guys into good players, it's the Seattle Seahawks. So we'll see what happens. Thank you for that super chat, Vincent Coe. Got another super chat. This one is from my man, John Livingston. Double up. Thank you for doubling it up, JL Smooth. Greatly appreciate you. My man, JL Smooth writes, I went back to watch highlights last night and remembered when he beat undefeated New England at the time. I was at that game. Crazy. Doesn't describe it. We still went 6-10 that year. That's Fitz. He's going to have his moments. And that's what I'm telling you. I mean, last year, before we knew the 49ers were trash, he takes the Dolphins to San Francisco and destroys them. And I think that's when everybody realized, and I think that got them to 3-3 and sent them into the bye week at 500. And I think everybody looked around and said, hey, wait a minute. Like, the Dolphins, they're not to be, tampered with. Like, these guys are legitimate, right? And Fitzpatrick was playing well. We've seen that before. We've seen that before from him. There, you'll get a couple of weeks of football where you're like, man, this guy is unconscious right now. I.e. the Tampa Bay season where they started off 2-0 and he's shredding everybody and everybody's all excited about what the Buccaneers could be. And then they have that Monday night game against Pittsburgh and he absolutely implodes. Throws a pick 6 in that game, among other things. They lose to the Steelers. And, shit starts to go downhill. But that's Ryan Fitzpatrick. There's good, there's bad, and there's a lot in between. But there are going to be some moments where you go, man, this guy, he's a hell of a gunslinger. He's a risk taker. He's a playmaker. I told you he's fun to watch. He's fun to watch. But with that comes the risk of him turning it over. And at some point, he's going to turn it over. So, and it usually balances itself out. At the end of the season, it may be a hell of a ride. It may be one hell of a roller coaster, but you look up and you're still 6-10. You're still 7-9. It's not good enough to make any noise. So, again, there's always that one year with the Jets where he went 10-6 and they still missed the postseason. But again, still didn't get it done. Thank you for that super chat, JL Smooth. My man, Joshua Farish, thank you for tripling up. Greatly appreciate you. Joshua Farish writes, Lou, where is our free agent wide receiver? You and me are asking the same question. What's funny is people misconstrue a lot of the things that I say. They're not listening very well. They hear what they want to hear. I didn't make any predictions for Washington other than I thought they were going to be aggressive on a wide receiver. And so far, I was wrong on that. Because I thought we would have already known who Washington was going to pair with Terry McLaurin by now. And I think what they're doing is what all the other teams out there are doing, is they're trying to wait the market out. The market is slowly coming down in terms of the price for these wide receivers. And to me, if I'm one of these wide receivers, I don't want your 3-year, 4-year deal now. Because I see where this thing is trending. I want a 1-year deal. I don't want to sign up long term. It's not a lot of money out here. You're trying to lowball me. I want a 1-year deal. Okay? And I want to prove myself, and then I want to hit the market again next year, and I want to cash in the way that I thought I was going to cash in this year. We'll talk more about the wide receiver position later on in the show, but I like you, thought that Washington would have already attached themselves to a wide receiver by now. I'm shocked. I am utterly shocked by the fact that Washington hasn't found themselves a free agent wide receiver to this point. And that's the thing that has been really surprising to me, is that we haven't found ourselves a wide receiver to this point. And there were so many options out there. I thought they would have identified a guy that they really liked and went after him hard and aggressively, and that hasn't happened yet. So that's the thing that has been most shocking to me to this point. You know, it's funny, everybody thinks that I thought we were going to be aggressive and spending all this money, and I said it would behoove Ron to be aggressive. I gave out my wish list, what I would do, not what I thought Washington was going to do. You know, the Mike Hiltons of the world, the Hunter Henrys, the Corey Davises, those are guys I wanted, what I would have done had I been in control. That's what I would do. That's not what I thought they would do, okay? I told you I had no clue what they were going to do because this is a new front office. And I said what will be interesting is to see how they move during free agency because this is a new conglomerate. So I want to see how they conduct themselves. And right now, this looks a lot like last year. That's what it feels like. That's what it looks like. That's what it appears to be. It's a different environment, obviously, with the reduced cap. But we got plenty of cap space. That's no explanation nor excuse for what's going on right now. I can't tell you what they're doing other than they don't want to overpay and they're trying to maybe bring the market down to where they're more comfortable. That's the only explanation I have as to why we haven't snagged a receiver yet. But the clock's ticking. Like, this is a game of musical chairs now. And at some point, you got to grab yourself a chair if you're interested in grabbing a chair. And that's something else we don't know. Are they actually interested in grabbing a chair? Because I wanted John Ross. And I told you guys, man, he's going to be cheap because he's looking to prove to the rest of the league that he wasn't a first round bust and a mistake. And so what he's saying is, I'm going to bet on myself for 1 year to prove that everybody that I belong, and then he's going to go back into the market and try to hit it big. He's young enough to do it. And I said he's going to want a 1 year prove it deal. And I was talking $5 million, $4 million. The man signed a 1 year, $2.5 million deal. We couldn't have done that. We couldn't have done that. That's the frustrating part about watching free agency unravel right now, is that I'm looking at the Hunter Henry deal and I'm saying $12.5 million. We couldn't have done that for 3 years. We couldn't do that for Hunter Henry, one of the most complete tight ends in the league. We couldn't have done that. I'm just kind of sitting back and I'm looking at the Corey Davis deal and I'm saying we couldn't have done that. Again, I'm not saying that's what they were interested in doing. I'm just saying I'm looking at the money. The numbers add up. This is market value. Nobody is grossly overpaid for any of the guys that I identified as good football players. I looked at the Mike Hilton contract, 4 years, $24 million, and like a slight shade over $8 million of it guaranteed. We couldn't have done that. Again, I'm not in control. Okay, $6 million per year for one of the better nickel backs in the league and one of the most aggressive blitzers off the slot. We couldn't have done that. And that's all I'm saying, is that we got all this money and we're sitting on our hands, and there are good football players that you can add to the mix that are young enough that make sense in the time frame that we're working with, and they haven't moved on anybody. And that's fine. I wouldn't categorize this free agency period as disappointing as many people have said. It's still early. We haven't even actually had the new league year start yet. For me, it would be slow is what I would categorize it as. It's slow. Not disappointing, it's slow. The only thing that's disappointing is that we haven't inked a deal with a receiver yet, but that remains to be seen. It's not like they're all gone. They're still available. All the guys except for Corey Davis and John Ross that I was interested in, they're still there. So we'll see what they decide to do. Thank you for that super chat, Joshua Farish. Once again, Joshua Farish, thank you for your 4th super chat of the night. Greatly appreciate you. My man, Joshua Farish, writes, New England is making it rain in free agency like a strip club. Indeed they are. We're going to talk about the Patriots. Remember yesterday, I went down the list of guys that they had come to an agreement with a contract on. And I said, man, the Patriots are being aggressive. And I even said this at the end. I don't know if they're done yet. That's the scary part. And they weren't. I wake up to them getting the best tight end left in free agency after getting the second best tight end the day before. And one of my top 3 guys left in my top 23, they take him off the board with ease on Tuesday morning. So yeah, the Patriots have been outstanding, man. I mean, look, I told you, there are no awards for this. There are no trophies that are handed out in March. So, but I can tell you, Patriots fans probably feel damn good about what their team has done, because they were one of the most talent deficient teams a season ago, and they still extracted 7 wins out of their schedule. And again, probably some of that is the fact that they play in the AFC East. It's still a bad division. You know, they were able to pretty much beat up on everybody in that division, sans for Buffalo. They probably still swept the Dolphins. If they didn't sweep them, they beat them once. I know they beat them early in the season in Cam Newton's first game. So I don't know what happened the second time those two teams played. And I'm pretty sure they beat the Jets twice. So, I mean, they still were able. They're still in the AFC East. That still matters. But they went from one of the most talent deficient teams to now, no excuses for Cam Newton or whomever's at quarterback. They got stuff, man. Plenty of weapons. They're getting stuff back on defense from COVID-19 and the opt-out. They added defensive talent. They've still got draft capital. They didn't give up anything to make any of these moves happen. They're sitting pretty, and they're gonna push all their chips to the center of the table and try to, make a run at it in the AFC. And I gotta admit, it's been impressive, even though it's a lot of money what they've spent. It's been impressive to watch them work. You know, it's funny because we talked about nobody wanting to go to New England. I can't speak for you. I talked about nobody wanting to go to New England and how funny it was that, here we are a year removed from Brady leaving, winning a chip, and you got people like Matthew Stafford saying, nah, I'm good. I don't want to go to New England. Well, can't tell that was the case in free agency because everybody is going to New England. Anyway, I digress. So got another super chat from HTTR Lot. Thank you for the super chat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. HTTR Lot, greatly appreciate you. Who writes, what direction do we go with our first round draft pick? It's hard to say because I've always said that you really base your, first round selection and what direction you think the team is going to go off of the strategy employed in free agency. Well, we don't know what they're going to do in free agency because if last year is any indication of what's to come, they're going to be active. It's just not at the very beginning. Last year they signed a bunch of guys that we weren't all that enthused by, but ultimately ended up being really good contributors for the football team. So you still have to wait and see what they do. I heard they're sniffing around free agent linebackers. That doesn't really impress me because there were no free agent linebackers to begin with. I've talked about that already. So, for them to be sniffing around a crop of linebackers that was already very, very slim pickings to begin with, I don't really know what they're looking to do. So it's hard for me to really say what they're going to do. I don't know how they actually feel about the offensive line. You got a lot of people saying they need to draft tackle. I don't think that's what they're thinking, but I could be wrong because I thought they would have already got a receiver by now. So I don't really know what to think, but I don't think wide receiver is something they'll be looking to do. But if they don't get one in free agency, then receiver becomes a massive need in the draft. And you can't really necessarily say we can just wait to get one either. You don't want to end up with another AGG type of player. You want a guy that's an impact player like a Justin Jefferson right out of the gate. If you can get that, and at 19, that's where you would have to spend a pick to probably get a guy like that. So it's hard to say right now. It could be receiver, it could be corner, it could be linebacker, it could be a quarterback, it could be anything. We don't really have the direction yet because we haven't seen them unfold any kind of plan in free agency to this point. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat and tripling up. Greatly appreciate you as always. JL Smooth, my man JL Smooth writes, thoughts on Bills signing Emmanuel Sanders and apparently Zach Ertz like tweets from Adam Schefter about Bills trade of Lee Smith. Lots of rumors here. Ertz would fit like hand in glove in Buffalo. I'm just telling you, you would love to add him to the mix, even though you know how I feel about Dawson Knox. Love him to death. Lee Smith was your blocking tight end. So Ertz, liking tweets about that. You're not a blocking tight end per se. I mean, he can block, but he still considers himself a pass catching tight end. So, what's interesting, because Lee Smith was traded to the Falcons, which opens up a spot on that Bills roster. Ertz wants to win. Bills are in a position where they were in the AFC Championship game a season ago. They've got a super talented quarterback. He's no dummy. All of that stuff is good. He just wants out. Honestly, I'm pretty sure that he'd love to go to Buffalo. I think he'd love to go to Seattle. He'd love to go to Indianapolis. Like, there are plenty of places that Ertz would like to go. I'd like to think he's still really good friends with Carson Wentz. So he just wants out of Philadelphia. At the end of the day, he just wants out. He wants a fresh start. Things are really souring there, and he'd like to start anew somewhere. And, as far as Emmanuel Sanders is concerned, it took him a long time, a lot longer than I thought it was going to pick up that Saints playbook last year. He dealt with some injuries, so that kind of slowed the process as well. But he never really truly had the impact that I thought he was going to have. The beauty of this signing for you is he's going to fill that John Brown void that has been vacated with John Brown being released. And you don't need him to be your number 2 or number 3 weapon in Buffalo. He could be a third, possibly a fourth option, as we saw Gabe Davis really come on strong. Last season, he could be third behind Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, and Gabe Davis. So him being the third or fourth option to me is fantastic for where he is at this point of his career. So, and I don't know if you guys still have Kenny Stills or not. I don't know if that was like a 1-year deal thing that you signed him to at the end of the season, but you got a lot of stuff in Buffalo. I don't think Kenny Stills is still on your roster, but you got an abundance of your riches at the receiver position, at the skill positions, period. So adding E-Man Sand I thought was a great move. Not going to cost you a ton of money. I think I saw something like a 1-year, $6 million deal, $500,000 of it, could be added in bonuses or something like that. So really good deal. I told you, Brandon Beane is magnificent at what he does. The Bills have had a tremendous offseason. Never thought you were going to be able to keep Milano and, Darrell Williams and all the guys that you've kept on board, but you have done that. And you add E-Man Sand. You could end up adding a Zach Ertz. I don't know what'll happen or become of that situation. But if you do nothing else, you got to feel like we've done enough to be right back in the position that we were in last year and have a chance. I just love what you've done to this point. So there is that. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, King of the North, who writes, Ron was willing to offer up $20 million for Cooper last year and Cricket so far this year. It's frustrating. Hunter Henry is going to New England. Kills me too. I read that somewhere on Twitter. Someone was saying, I want to say it was Ben Standing or it was John Kime. I want to say it was Ben Standing. And he was talking about how Ron didn't know any of the players last year. He didn't know Terry McLaurin last year. So he wanted a bona fide number 1 wide receiver because he didn't know if Terry was that or not. Now that he's had a chance to be around Terry and he's had a chance to coach Terry and he sees what this guy is all about, and he watched Terry play through 2 sprained ankles at the end of the season and gut it out. He knows what kind of a dog he's coaching now, and he's like, no, this guy's a legitimate number 1. So now he's not as gung-ho to be out here spending money frivolously because, as I've mentioned, he didn't know that Terry was going to command money when his deal was up. He was looking at Terry like another guy. And he's saying, I need a guy. I need a dude. I need a dog. So I'm going to go get Amari Cooper, which I would have told him, he's not a dog. He's a cat. Meow. He's a cat. You want a dog? He ain't it. That dog don't hunt. However, I'm glad Dallas bailed us out, stopped us, and protected us from ourselves last year. And now he realizes, oh, I got a dog right here in my backyard in Terry McLaurin. So now they're trying to make sure, and I told you, that's why I think they're around here pussyfooting. Because they're saying, We know when Terry isn't a first round pick, there's no 5th round or 5th year option on Terry. You know, Terry's going to want a deal after next season. You don't want to go into his last year of his deal without a new deal. Terry's going to want a deal and new money after year 3, which is next season. And they know they're going to have to pay him. So they don't want to pay this receiver that they're signing in free agency a boatload of money. I laid this out for you guys on the show, last Thursday? Yeah, I laid that out for you. I said they don't want to overspend on a receiver and then turn around. And that's why I'm looking at that Corey Davis deal and I'm saying 3-year deal, 12 million per, 12 and a half to be exact. And I'm saying, even if you felt like Terry might feel like, disrespected by that, it's a 3-year deal. By the time you're ready to pay, Terry, Corey Davis could be on his way out on a 3-year deal. Depending on how you finagle that Terry situation. I'm just like, it's not enough for you to say, hey, I see him, young guy, up and coming, fits with the time frame that we're in, really like where this thing is going. I just thought that made a ton of sense. It can make a ton of sense for a Will Fuller. He's the same age as Corey Davis, right around that same age range. Okay, it can make a ton of sense. Juju Smith-Schuster's younger than all of them, but I don't know what they're looking to do. Curtis Samuel, he's young as hell too. So I can tell you this. Ron didn't know what he had last season. He knows what he has now. So I think that may change the way that he views it. That's all I'm saying in his defense. Hunter Henry going to New England, that's frustrating for me because that's the guy I wanted the most in free agency. Of all, forget about receivers. I wanted him more than anything else because for so long, we've been void of a complete tight end. I can't remember. Chris Cooley was the last time we had a complete tight end. We haven't had a guy that could block and catch it all in one body at the tight end position. Jordan Reed was never that. Vernon Davis was never that. We've never had it since Chris Cooley has departed this football team in his prime. So I was looking forward to potentially getting a guy that could do that. And they decided that he wasn't worth it. And maybe they looked at his injury history and that played a part into it. I can't tell you what it is, but that was disappointing. I'll say that. Lorenzo Simpson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My man Zoe writes, sent you a message on IG about Fitzpatrick signing. Tell me what you think. All right, well, let's take a look at it and see what that message is all about and see what you are talking about. Now, this is the thing. Which one did you send it to? Because I'm all over the place. You know that. So let me see where you may have sent it. Oh, I see it. Found it. All right. So my man Zoe writes, what up, bro? Had a night to sleep on it and convince myself that this is the likely scenarios. He says, number one, either Allen or Heineke will be the starter with Fitzpatrick as the backup. The loser will go to the practice squad or cut. I don't see them cutting. The only way they don't carry 3 quarterbacks is only way that one of these guys isn't on the roster and they don't carry them is if they draft a young guy, because you can't cut the young guy and stick him on the practice squad. Somebody would claim him off waivers. So the only way, Fitzpatrick, with the money they're paying him and his value around the league, you can't cut him. So he's definitely going to be the backup. So you're right about that. If he doesn't win the job, I think he's going to ultimately win the job. But if he doesn't win the job, Allen or Heineke, whomever's the starter, will be your guy, your number one. Fitzpatrick's your number 2. You draft a young guy, he'll be the number 3 quarterback. And then the guy that loses the quarterback battle goes to the practice squad. So that does make sense if they draft a young guy. If they don't draft a young guy, then whomever doesn't win that battle would be your 2, and Fitzpatrick would be the 3 in your scenario, which I can't see them paying him $10 million to be the number 3 quarterback. I think they feel like he's the best option that they have. So we'll see about that. He says, number 2, in the draft, we draft a quarterback in the first 3 rounds, whether it's trade up for a top prospect or grab one in the second or third. A legitimate 3 quarterback battle between Allen, Fitzpatrick, and Heineke with the rookie seating and sitting and learning. I can see that definitely happening. 3, the front office isn't a fan of any of these quarterbacks and waiting for next year's draft to find the quarterback of the future, which it's hard for me. I mean, and again, that could be the case, but what makes next year's draft so much better? You know, I don't know the quarterbacks that are going to be available next year. I can't look that far into the future, but Desmond Ridder gets you excited. Like, I don't understand how you could love the guys next year and not love the guys this year. The guys this year, for the most part, are outstanding. But anyway, you could be right about that, though. You could be right. They could not love, any of these guys. That they could maybe love 1 or 2, but it could be Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence, and they know they're not getting either one of those guys for that matter. Or 4, Rivera and the new front office have zero clue what they're doing. I don't think it's the 4th one. I don't think it's the last of those options. I think the most viable of the 4 options laid out are 2 and 3. That, it's going to be a 3-way quarterback battle, and there's going to be a rookie inserted into this thing, and you could see a guy potentially going to the bench or to the practice squad, or the 3rd option, which is, you have your quarterback battle. And I think that the front office could say, you know what, we're going to pass on the quarterback position. We're going to just go ahead and go after it again next year. See if we can reshuffle the deck next season and see if we stumble upon something that tickles our fancy a little bit better than the options that were laid out for us this year. So that's also a distinct possibility as well. Thank you for that super chat, Lorenzo Simpson. Got another one here for Jazim P. Thank you for the super chat, Jazim P, who writes, Ron's thinking, best case scenario, Heineke can start, stay healthy enough to at least play 12 games, win 8, Fitz can mentor, and win 3 to 5. So another reason why I don't want Ryan Fitzpatrick anywhere near my football team is because wherever he goes, quarterbacks get hurt. And there is a track record and a history of Ryan Fitzpatrick getting on the field. Again, nobody ever signs Ryan Fitzpatrick to be the guy. I think he was only signed in one scenario to be the guy right out of the gate. Most of these situations, he signed as a backup. He comes in, the starter gets hurt like he always does. It's almost like a curse. And he gets in there and he plays well and he takes over, and that's when he gets the deal to stay there, like he did with the Bills or like he did with the Jets or the Bengals. I can tell you what, I don't know if Heineke can last that long with Fitzpatrick on the roster. It just doesn't happen that way. You might get 4 or 5 good games out of your starter with Fitzpatrick on the roster before shit starts to go sideways and he's got to be inserted. So that's why I'm like, it doesn't even matter if he doesn't win the job. It doesn't matter because he's still going to end up playing anyway. Somebody's going to get hurt. Like, this never ends well when he's on your roster. He's going to play. It's ridiculous. Thank you for that super chat. Got another one from, let's see. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah. Got another one here from Taint Tostada. Thank you for the super chat, Taint Tostada, who writes, the new name should be the Washington Burgundy and Gold. No, that can't be the name. That's worse than the football team. The Washington Burgundy and Gold. Nah, I definitely wouldn't want them to be named that. You think we're the laughing stock now? I mean, yeah, football team is easy to make fun of, but you're literally colors at that point. Like, nah, I don't think that's what they want to do. But I know they're not changing the color, so we'll still be burgundy and gold. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat, your 4th of the night. Greatly appreciate you. JL Smooth, as always, who writes, Zach Ertz is now following Bill's Instagram. It's happening. It's amazing how excited fan bases get when these players start making moves on socials. that's the way that, this thing has evolved now, where you can kind of track a player by what they're doing. I tend to stay out of those affairs because we see players all the time in negotiations get upset and they wipe their entire social media account clean of their former team or the team that they're currently on, but they're frustrated with at the time. So, you scrub it clean. Like Deshaun Watson's done that with the Texans, and we've seen that done in the past with other players when they're frustrated, and it doesn't mean anything. I remember somebody liking a tweet of someone on our team that was a player somewhere else, and fans got to say, "Oh, we liked the tweet." I mean, seriously, like, what are we doing here? He might actually end up in Buffalo though, because his agent was given permission to seek a trade. So, like, they're in control of their situation. So, I would not dismiss that. I would not dismiss Zach Ertz being traded to Buffalo. So, I got news. Washington football team signed William Jackson III to a 3-year deal worth roughly $14 million per year. Again, $14 million for a 29-year-old corner. I can't tell you that I love it. Again, that's a lot of money for William Jackson. You didn't want to give up 10 for Darby. I just don't know. Now, if you ask me who's the more talented of the two, I would tell you it's William Jackson, but that doesn't mean a damn thing. You know what I mean? Darby is 27 years old, so he's younger. Yeah, there's a injury history there with Ronald Darby that may not exist with William Jackson, but William Jackson's missed some time in this league with injuries as well. So it goes both ways. At the end of the day, that's a lot of money for a cornerback that I felt like. Now, I will tell you, William Jackson was number 12 on my top 23 free agents list, so I know the talent is there. I can acknowledge that. He's an upgrade over Ronald Darby, but again, 29, $4 more million per year, and how much tread is left on those tires at 29 years old? That's the problem for me here. If you were going to do this, why didn't you just go and sign James Bradberry last year to this same deal? Because this is comparable money to what Bradberry got from the Giants, and he's younger, and we saw the problem that he was for the Giants last year. I mean, he was damn near an all-pro last year for the Giants. Why didn't you just sign him? You were familiar with him. You knew what he was about. He was much younger. If you were going to spend that kind of bread at the cornerback position, why you just didn't do that last year on James Bradberry? I don't understand it, but here are the full terms of the deal. 3 years, $42 million, $26 million of it guaranteed for William Jackson III. So yet another player off my top 23 list has been snatched up, so I will remove him from my top 23 list. So now there are only 7 players left on my top 23 list, as Washington has snagged cornerback William Jackson III and made him the newest member of their football team. So that takes the cornerback position off the list of needs. So you now 19 should not include the discussion of a cornerback. If you're Washington, I think now you can go back to focusing in on quarterback, potentially offensive line if they feel like that's a needy position. I don't think that is the case. And right now, receiver is still a big need. I still contend that they're going to take care of the receiver position, but William Jackson III, to me, is an upgrade over Darby. But again, 29 years old, that's the problem that I had with William Jackson. Or excuse me, he's 27. My bad. Let me walk that back. I was thinking of Anthony Harris, the cornerback, the safety out of Minnesota. He's 27, same age as Ronald Darby. So let me walk all of that stuff I just said back. He's talented. I love it. 27, I can deal with that because there's more upside with him. He's a better athlete. He's a longer athlete. He's got better ball skills than Darby. I have no problems with this whatsoever. Okay, so love the signing. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but I think he'll be worth it if he's healthy. So there is that right there. Got another super chat. This one is from Kevin Guvera, who writes, first of all, thank you for the super chat, Kevin Guvera, who writes, Washington football signing William Jackson. Talked about that already. That's a big move for Washington. It's their first big splash in the free agency pool this offseason. And so that might be the start of Washington really starting to dip their toe. And you know what's funny is the same exact thing happened last year. If you recall, I was actually live doing a video, and then that's when the news came of Washington signing cornerback Kendall Fuller. If you remember, the second night of the free agency frenzy, I believe, it might have been the first night, that tampering period. But I remember it was late that night, right around like 10 o'clock. They signed Kendall Fuller, and they did it again. So we'll see what happens. But that, to me, is a big signing for Washington. And to me, he was the best cornerback. Let me look at my list. I think he was my top cornerback, available in free agency. So I go down the list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yes, he was my top cornerback on the market, was William Jackson III. So that's a big deal. That's a really big deal, getting William Jackson III to Washington. And he's a hell of a man-to-man corner. He can run. Loved him coming out of Houston. And like I said, that's an upgrade. So let's see if we have any more super chats. If not, we will get to our next topic. But before we do, I want to go ahead and give you this ad read. This podcast is sponsored by Manscaped. I've talked about the products for Manscaped a ton. The perfect package is what they sent me, and I'm in love with it. A few items in the package in particular: the Crop Preserver and the Crop Reviver. The Preserver is a ball deodorant you put on after you get out of the shower. As I've mentioned, you don't wait till you get musty to put on deodorant on your underarms. You do the same thing. You are looking for a preventative measure. That's what the Crop Preserver is. If you need to revive your balls, maybe they're getting a little tart, that's where the Crop Reviver comes in. That's a spray, almost like a bit of a cologne. You hit a couple of squirts underneath, bring it back to life. You want to kind of quell all of that funk. The reason it's funky down there is because it's a lot of hair down there. You can use the 3.0 lawn mower that is also included in the perfect package. They throw in a pair of underwear. They throw in a shirt. They throw in a travel bag that is awesome. It's a great deal. And you can get all of this on the website, manscaped.com. Use the promo code LouieT for 20% off, and you'll get free shipping with that. That's manscaped.com. Use the promo code LouieT. You'll get 20% off of your purchase, plus free shipping included in that. Again, if you want to unlock your confidence, use the right tools for the job. And as I've told you many times before, your balls will thank you. So let's get to our next topic of discussion and segment, and that's the free agent frenzy. We just talked about Washington signing William Jackson III. I'm going to keep tabs on whether anything else happens with any team in the league. We're going to go through the rest of what transpired today in day number 2 of the tampering period, and run through the list. I told you I woke up this morning to the New England Patriots signing Hunter Henry, which was quite a surprise after they signed Jonnu Smith. I mean, they came out of the gates with Jonnu Smith. So the thought process was, okay, they weren't going to sign Hunter Henry, so they got the next best thing, which was Jonnu Smith. And lo and behold, not only did they have Jonnu Smith in mind, but they also were eyeballing Hunter Henry. And essentially what they've done is, in effect, they're trying to recreate what they once had with Aaron Hernandez and Gronk, and they're not too far away from doing that with what they've acquired. And remember, they drafted the kid out of UCLA last season in the draft. So for all intents and purposes, they could have 3 really stellar tight ends if that young kid continues to develop. So they've got quite a bit of riches out there in New England at the tight end position. But in any event, let's go through the list of got a super chat from Eric Darden, and it's just a sticker of someone dancing, and you should be dancing. That's a big signing for Washington, because again, cornerback was a need we did not want to go into the draft having to fill. So to get an upgrade, to get a corner, not only get a corner, but the best corner available on the market, and upgrade the position from Ronald Darby, I think that is a big get for Washington. Now, the question is, what are they going to do at receiver? I think that's the next, you created a hole with not re-signing Darby. You filled that hole. Okay. You plugged that hole. We still got a big hole here, a big dike, if you will. We need to plug that dike. Okay. And that's the receiver position. So now all eyes turn back to the offensive side of the ball if you're a Washington football team fan and wanting to see what they do at the receiver position. As we talked about already with the Buffalo Bills, Emmanuel Sanders agreed to a 1-year contract with the Bills. I think it's 1 year, $6 million. I think I saw. But either way, it's a 1-year deal in Buffalo. Makes a ton of sense for the Bills. Another really good signing for the Bills. I think they've had a strong offseason to this point. Miami Dolphins signed Jacoby Brissett to a 1-year, $5 million contract. We talked about that already. That's a good move for them to shore up the quarterback position. You lose Ryan Fitzpatrick. You bring in another veteran just in case Tua has some issues. And we know Tua has been a guy that hasn't been able to stay healthy throughout the course of his career as well. So having Jacoby Brissett as an insurance policy is a really good move there. Running back Malcolm Brown, who I really liked in Los Angeles as a quality backup, one of the better backup running backs in the league, even going back to his time backing up Todd Gurley and even having more of a role with no Gurley this past year. I thought Malcolm Brown was a good signing here. Remember, I talked so bad about the Dolphins running back position and how they really needed to upgrade it. This is a really good move here, getting running back Malcolm Brown to a deal. We move on to the New England Patriots. I talked about this already, but we'll go over it again. Hunter Henry, 3-year, $37.5 million contract that includes $25 million fully guaranteed. So as I mentioned, $12.5 million for Hunter Henry per year on a 3-year deal. For me, I'm just like, God, that is a really delicious deal that the Patriots signed him to. I mean, and most of these contracts are coming off the board at right around the same time. So, it feels like they're doing a ton, but they'll be able to get out a lot of this money and be in good shape in 3 years. So it's a window that they're trying to take advantage of, obviously, and we'll see what they're able to do there. As we move on, we go to the Baltimore Ravens, and they were a little bit more busy today, keeping some of their own guys. Remember, we talked about Kevin Zeitler signing a 3-year deal with them yesterday. Well, they re-signed Tyus Bowser, their defensive end that they drafted out of Houston. Really talented guy, to a 4-year, $22 million deal that can get up to $27 million. 12 of it is guaranteed money. So that's a really good contract for Tyus Bowser, and that's a good get for the Ravens to keep him in Baltimore. Same with Pernell McPhee, re-signed him to a 1-year deal. I thought his career was almost over 2 years ago. He revived it last year in Baltimore, and they liked what they saw so much so that they gave him another 1-year deal to come back. And then Derek Wolfe is a guy that I've always liked going back to his days in Denver. They signed him to a contract, I think a year or two ago. And now they're re-signing him to a 3-year, $12 million deal that will pay him $6.5 million in 2021. So Derek Wolfe staying put in Baltimore. I really like what the Cincinnati Bengals have done this offseason. They have done some really good things. We talked about them re-signing quarterback Brandon Allen already. We talked about Trey Hendrickson. That was a big deal yesterday. They lost, we just talked about, William Jackson III. They lost their cornerback. So they signed Chidobe Awuzie, the corner out of Dallas that was the corner out of Colorado. And he's a guy that has some talent, physical corner, likes to press, and 3-year, $21.75 million deal that includes $9.25 million in the first year. This is a guy that has some talent, and we're going to see if he can stay healthy. Number one, he was not healthy last year with Dallas. And number two, can he start to play up to the potential that this guy had coming into the league? That's a solid contract. But my favorite signing after the Trey Hendrickson deal is Mike Hilton, cornerback. I wanted him very badly in Washington, one of the best nickel corners in the league, if you ask me. Signs a 4-year, $24 million deal with $8.5 million in the first year. That is a lovely deal there for all parties involved. And, one of the better nickel corners. And I told you, nobody knows your stuff better than a team in the division. They're eyeballing your stuff from a distance. They know how good it is because they've seen it up close and personal for years. And it makes a ton of sense that Mike Hilton is now a Cincinnati Bengal. The Browns signed Takaris McKinley, a.k.a. Tack McKinley, who is really at this point now trying to prove that he belongs in this league. 1-year deal up to $4 million. He was a bust in Atlanta. I told them, don't sign this guy. Don't draft this guy. The same thing I told Dolphins fans when they drafted the kid out of Missouri. Like, don't do it. Don't draft this kid. He's not worth the first-round pick. Chris Harris, I think his name is Harris. Might be Chris Harris. No, it's Harris for the Dolphins. Tack McKinley, I felt the same way coming out of UCLA. Really raw. Didn't see anything other than a guy that just wanted to run up the field. And he's now in Cleveland. They're hoping that they can revive his career and pair him with Myles Garrett. And maybe, just maybe, he'll learn something from one of the best pass rushers in the league. As we get to the AFC South, we talked about Tyrod Taylor signing a 1-year deal that can get up to $12.5 million. It's a big deal because, again, I think they're ready to get into a staring contest with Deshaun Watson, and Tyrod Taylor gives them the flexibility to be able to do so. They've been extremely busy. They also signed defensive end Derek Rivers to a 1-year, $1.3 million deal. I remember when the New England Patriots drafted him out of a small school. I can't remember. I think it was like Illinois State or something like that. And I saw some talent, man, but this kid could never stay healthy. If he can ever stay healthy and actually put it together, they may be unearthing a gem there. But they also signed cornerback Terrence Mitchell to a 2-year, $7.5 million deal. So they've been extremely active, the most active team in free agency to this point. As we continue on, another team that's been really active, just as active as Houston and New England, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they continue to be active in free agency. They signed wide receiver Marvin Jones to a 1-year deal worth $7 million. That's a great signing for them. A veteran presence that gives you instant credibility at the wide receiver position to go alongside DJ Chark. I always felt like they had some quality guys out there. I was a huge fan of their other receiver, Keelan Cole, but this is an upgrade from Keelan Cole to have Marvin Jones as a legitimate number 2 alongside DJ Chark. So I love that signing for them. So they add him to the mix. They added a Jihad Ward to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal, $2 million of it guaranteed. So they traded for Malcolm Brown with the Saints. They acquired him in a trade. And so they're really just turning over this roster. Brand new regime. I talked about this already. When you get new guys they out with the old, in with the new. They're getting guys that they want. And so another big signing. I think we talked about this already. Maybe we did. Maybe we didn't. I don't think we did. Shaquille Griffin was a big free agent acquisition for them, signing a 3-year, $44.5 million deal with Jacksonville, $29 million of it guaranteed. That is a big, big deal to get yourself a corner. Remember, they went from having Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boye to absolutely nothing last season. Now, they had the rookie, CJ Henderson. He was a rookie, though. You know how that goes in this league. If you're not elite, baptism by fire. He had his good moments. He also was filleted and sauteed last season at times. So he'll be better because of it. You add Shaq Griffin next to him, you may have something. And then they said, just to put a little icing on top, Rayshawn Jenkins, safety from the Chargers, signs a 4-year, $35 million contract, $16 million fully guaranteed, maximum value of $39.5. So again, they're turning over this roster. This will look like a brand new, totally different team upcoming in 2021 in Jacksonville. Janoris Jenkins signs a free agent deal with the Tennessee Titans. So that was a big deal after they cut cornerback, their former first-round pick, the kid out of USC. Can't remember his name right now, but they cut him and they signed Janoris Jenkins. Remember, they had already cut the ex-New England Patriots corner earlier in the week. So they're revamping their secondary in Tennessee. And they also re-signed tight end Jeff Swaim to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. Also, they agreed to a 2-year contract up to $8.5 million with Kendall Lamb. I think we talked about that yesterday, but it makes more sense now because they moved on from their right tackle, Dennis Kelly, today as well. So they have done a little bit of house cleaning in Tennessee. And so you see all of that stuff starting to come into focus. Adoree Jackson, thank you, Jordan Jones and Nick Drowsy. Adoree Jackson was the corner that they released. So let me make sure that we haven't missed anything. All right, we talked about it already. Let's see. We move on. Taco Charlton back in Kansas City on a 1-year deal. That went down. Yannick Ngakoue, we got the numbers for his deal, 2-year contract worth $26 million in Vegas for the Raiders. So we continue to push on. The Dallas Cowboys signed Ty Nsekhe to a 1-year deal, former Buffalo Bill, former Washington Redskin / football team member. They also signed CJ Goodwin. He's staying with the team on a 2-year deal worth $3.5 million. The Giants were extremely busy today. They signed their defensive end, Leonard Williams, who was on his 2nd consecutive franchise tag, to a 3-year, $63 million deal, including $45 million of it fully guaranteed. Williams will receive a signing bonus of $22.5 million, and his cap number will fall to $11 million. So again, being creative with the cap this year. But the guy that the best bang for their buck type of deal, it's the best, risk reward. It's a low risk, high reward proposition, is John Ross, former first-round pick of the Cincinnati Bengals. 1 year, $2.5 million deal, $1 million of it guaranteed. If this guy stinks in camp, if this guy gets injured in camp, you can cut him. With the deal you signed him to, there are no guarantees here. To me, that's an excellent deal that I would have loved Washington to have been all over with John Ross. Obviously, we talked about the William Jackson III signing in Washington, but just to recap that one quickly, William Jackson III is now a Washington football team member on a 3-year, $42 million deal. 26 of that deal is fully guaranteed to William Jackson III. He was my number 12 player on my top 23 list of free agents. So in the number 1 corner on my list of free agents. So Washington definitely upgraded the position. He's 27 years old. You feel really good about that signing if you're a member of that fan base. Chicago Bears signed Andy Dalton to a 1-year, $10 million contract that has a max value of up to $13 million. We talked about that in the Gem Droppin Session earlier in the show. Also, the Bears signed Jermaine Ifedi to a 1-year deal up to $5 million to try to help shore up that offensive line. As we continue on, we move to the NFC North, where the Minnesota Vikings have signed linebacker Nick Vigil to a 1-year deal that's worth more than $1 million guaranteed. They were busy yesterday, not as busy today. Talked about Lee Smith being traded to the Atlanta Falcons. Buffalo Bills trade tight end Lee Smith, who is one of the best blocking tight ends in the business, to the Atlanta Falcons for a late 2022 draft picks. So we'll see what that ultimately amounts to for them as we move forward and we continue on. No news in the remainder of that the NFC South. We get to the NFC West, where we don't have any more news. So that is where we are right now. All the moves that were made today. And again, big signing for Washington. That's the latest news we have, is that Washington signs cornerback William Jackson III. So got a couple of super chats. And then we will move on to our final segment of the night. Melaqui Jimenez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, William Jackson III, 3 years, $42 million. We've talked about that already. Like I said, big signing, big move for Washington. And we went into the offseason with that being a position that could be a need. Darby moves on to Denver in day one of the tampering window, and you weren't sure if Washington was going to be able to fill that. They do it with one of the best corners available in the market in William Jackson III. So Malik Taylor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Bloodshot Sports writes, what up, Lou? I hear Raekwon McMillan is in the building. What do you think about him? Raekwon McMillan is a guy that is a big, physical, athletic linebacker out of Ohio State. For whatever reason, he hasn't been able to find a home. He was drafted by the Dolphins in the second round. It did not work there. They traded him to Vegas. They were starving for good linebacker play, and for whatever reason, it didn't work there. He's now on the streets as a former second-round pick looking for an opportunity. It's the kind of guy that they've been signing, a guy with a ton of talent. It's what I wanted to do with John Ross. Ross was a former first-round pick. This guy's a former second-round pick. He can run. He's an athlete. But that, just being able to run and being an athlete doesn't qualify you as a good football player. So it's now two teams that have figured that this guy can't do it. But again, a lot of times it's scheme with players that are talented. And as opposed to the guy not being able to do it, it's scheme and fit. So if he fits what they're trying to do, it's not going to cost you much to kick the tires on Raekwon McMillan. All right. It's not going to cost you a whole hell of a lot. It'll be essentially them re-signing KPL again, all over again. You really don't know what you're getting. You're getting a guy that's been around the block a couple of times and has been casted off. And I wouldn't have a problem with them kicking the tires on Raekwon McMillan. I can tell you this, that shouldn't stop you from drafting a high-level linebacker. And Raekwon McMillan isn't a middle linebacker anyway, but his presence shouldn't stop you from drafting a linebacker. If anything, you bring him in, he's more of a strong side backer, but they had Cole Holcomb playing strong side backer last year. So I don't know what they are looking for Raekwon McMillan to do, but we'll see. I told you they were sniffing around him. They were sniffing around Anthony Morrow of the Vegas Raiders. That was the report that I was hearing. So it's not surprising to me that this is something that they're interested in. Like I said, I think the guy has talent. There's no denying that. That's why he was drafted second round. But I don't know if, what he's done to this point to have played on two different teams and nobody want this guy. But the talent is definitely there. Maybe he just needs the right fit. So, and maybe that could be Washington for all we know. But we'll see what happens with Raekwon McMillan. Got another super chat. This next one is from Shet A. Raab. I don't know if I got that right or not, but thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, greetings, Lou. I'm new. Listen to your channel and enjoy the content you present. Don't like the Fitzpatrick deal. I'm just saying, hashtag double up. Speaking of which, that gets me to thinking, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. If you haven't already liked this video, please do so. Over 370 of you out there, only 93 likes. Let's get this thing up over 100, and then we're gonna push for $150 and maybe up to 200. But first things first, let's get over the century mark. Let's hit 100 likes. So I'm going to thank you in advance for that. As far as you not liking the Fitzpatrick deal, I'm right there with you. I don't have any problems with the money. One year, $10 million, that doesn't faze me one bit. I just don't like the fact that Ryan Fitzpatrick is the move. But again, it is what it is. Worse things have happened. I'm not going to cry over a one-year deal with the 38-year quarterback. I don't like it. I've already stated that. We move on. I'm not going to dwell on that. But I want to see if they're going to draft a young guy or not. That's the one thing that'll make me feel a little bit better about the move. Other than that, I think you're spinning in place, essentially, with Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback. So thank you for that super chat, Shet A. Ra-Ab. Got another super chat. This one is from Taint Tostada. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Taint Tostada. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, draft best quarterback and offensive tackle in first and second. Let them suck his thumb and let the quarterback roster flush out. So essentially you're saying let the young QB sit, learn behind the trio of guys that they have. Let them battle it out. Let the young guy learn, and then you move forward from there. I don't have a problem with that. I think if you're a Washington fan, that's the best case scenario right now, is that they draft a youngin, they stash him, and they let the quarterback battle unfold, however that plays itself out. Whomever emerges from that is your guy, and you hope that the young guy is taking notes, getting better. And whether he has to play, you're hoping that he doesn't have to play in year one, because if he doesn't, that means more likely than not, we're playing meaningful football all season long. That's what that more likely than not means. If he's playing at any point, either something really, really bad has happened multiple times over, or we're not a good football team and we're playing out the string, and they said, let's get the young fella out there and see what he's got. So the hope is he is on the roster, he being a young quarterback, and he's able to learn and not having to play. That's the hope. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, thank you guys for those super chats. And we're going to go to our next segment. And before we do that, got another promo and ad read. This one is from RentalKarma.com. So that's another sponsor of the show. I want to thank RentalKarma.com for their support. And I do want to encourage you to use Rental Karma and the benefits that can come from Rental Karma. Credit score is important. I'm going to say this quickly and we're going to move out of here. Credit score is important. If you're a homeowner, then this isn't a message for you, and I'm trying to get to where you are. So is most of everyone that is out there. But if you're a renter like me, then your credit score is important. It is impactful. It is something that you can use to leverage to, as a wise man once told me, spend other people's money. You want a new house, you want a new car, all of these things are impacted by your credit. Okay, so with that said, why not use your rental history and potential rental future to help improve your credit score? And that's where RentalKarma.com comes into play. Use RentalKarma.com you use my promo code. So go to rentalkarma.com, put in the promo code LTN25, and you will get 25% off of the services rendered by rentalkarma.com. And essentially what they do is they use your rental history and future to help boost your credit score. You pay your rent on time, right? If you're paying it on time, why not allow that credit to develop on your credit score and boost your credit score upwards of 80 points, okay? In as little as 6 months, you could see humongous increases on your credit score, and your rent being paid on time is reported to all 3 credit bureaus through rentalkarma.com. So once again, go to rentalkarma.com, use the promo code LTN25 to get 25% off their services rendered. And trust me, you won't be sorry. Use your rental history to help better your credit score. So with that said, let's get to our final segment of the night, garbage time. And so let's take a look. I got a couple super chats. I want to knock those out quickly. First thing is Jordan Like the GOAT. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My man Jordan Like the GOAT writes, hold on a second. I want to make sure that we don't have any more news from any team out there. Okay. So, thoughts on Jayon Brown and Adoree Jackson. I'm not a big Adoree Jackson fan. I wasn't a huge fan of his coming out of USC. I love the returnability that he added to the mix, but I wasn't a massive fan of his game. So Tennessee parting ways with him is not a surprise to me, and he's had injury concerns throughout the course of his career. Jayon Brown, on the other hand, is an intriguing prospect. I've talked about him, a guy that I am intrigued by. I would not mind Washington signing him at all whatsoever. He is coming off of a season where he did have an injury that shortened his season significantly. So I don't really know where they are in that process and how they feel about him, but I wouldn't mind taking a flyer on a Jayon Brown. They seem to not want to spend a ton of money at that position. I think it might take a little bit more than maybe what they're comfortable with to sign Jayon Brown. Whereas that's why they're looking at a guy like the guys I've mentioned, Anthony Morrow in Vegas with the Raiders, and also the former Ohio State linebacker Raekwon McMillan that was drafted by the Dolphins in the second round, then traded to Vegas, and has been released by the Raiders as well. So, or I think his contract might actually be up. At this point, I would say he was released, because if Washington can have a chance to negotiate with him at this point, I'd like to think that he was released already. But in any event, I think they're looking for one of those types guys. You know, not going to cost you a bunch of money. They feel like we're spending all of this draft capital and all these resources on the defensive line so that you don't have to overspend at the linebacker position. I think that's their thought process. You can't spend big dollars at every level if you're going to pour resources into your secondary, which they already have, because now you're paying 2 corners. Got, $10 million per on one side with Fuller. Now you got $12 million or $14 million per year on the other side with William Jackson. I don't know if they're going to do anything at the safety position or not, but they've already invested in Landon Collins. So you're spending on the third level. You're going to have to spend on the defensive line. You spent a ton of draft capital on the defensive line, and you're going to ultimately spend a lot of money when it's all said and done re-signing those guys. You got to cut a corner somewhere. I think right now where they're trying to do that at is at the linebacker position. So it'd make a ton of sense to find a guy that you can get the most out of and not have to pay a ton of money to do so. And it would also make a ton of sense to maybe go in the draft and try to find some young talent there as well, some cheap labor, if you are the Washington football team. And I do want to announce this too. This is old news, but I still didn't bring it up. Seahawks re-signed nose tackle Poona Ford to a 2-year deal that could be up to worth $12 or $14 million. with incentives. So that's a guy that's been playing really good football for the Seattle Seahawks as well. So I did want to throw that out there too. Brian Norfleet, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My man Brian Norfleet writes, great content. Thanks for all that you do. Hashtag appreciate it. I appreciate you, Brian, for the support. And I look forward to continuing to chop it up with you and continuing to provide you with the coverage that you've come to expect here on the Louie T Network. Really do appreciate you, Brian Norfleet. So with that said, I want to get to garbage time. And I got another super chat. This one is from Chet A. Ra Ab. Thank you for the super chat. And double up. It says, great pronunciation of the name. Oh, okay. I thought I jacked it up. Sorry. So it's good to know. It says, would be content with what we have at quarterback to start the season. I mean, I don't have any choice but to be content with it. I was content with it even if Fitzpatrick wasn't here, so I'm content with it with him here. It wasn't ideal. Obviously, I would have liked to have upgraded the position, but all they did was add another guy to the mix. And that's why I'm not like overly frustrated by it. I'm just like, what are we doing? You know? But because my whole stance has been, if you're going to go with a guy like Fitzpatrick, you might as well just let Heineke or Kyle Allen start. At least there's a chance to find out that there's some upside there, you know? And ultimately, as people have pointed out to me, that ultimately may play itself out, and they may be the guys that start. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Let's see. Garbage time is my top 23 list. All right. There's 7 players left on this top 23 list. There were 8. William Jackson III getting signed reduced that down to 7. And I want to run through this real quick. So of my top 23, only 7 players remain, and those players are my number 1 rated player on my list of free agents is Kenny Golladay, wide receiver from the Detroit Lions. He's still available. Number 2, offensive tackle Trent Williams of the San Francisco 49ers. The thought process is he's going to go back to the 49ers, but you know they've got a long way to go in terms of figuring out what's a good number for all sides involved. Number 5 is wide receiver William Fuller V. So he's an intriguing guy, one that I would love to have in Washington. The one thing we're lacking right now is a true home run threat opposite of Terry McLaurin. He would fit that perfectly at this point. Number 7 was safety Anthony Harris out of Minnesota. Thought he would have signed by now. Apparently he's looking for more money than the market is willing to pay him at this point. We've seen guys like John Johnson get money. I talked about a safety from the Chargers getting good money from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I thought he would have moved already. He's still here. So that tells you that he's looking to cash in. This is the first time he's hit the market. He's looking, because this will be the last time he'll get paid big money. So he's trying to cash in. We'll see if he gets what he's looking for. Number 9 on my list is wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster. He's still available, the former Pittsburgh Steeler wide receiver. Number 16 is cornerback Patrick Peterson. He's available as a veteran. We'll see where he lands. And then my number 21 free agent in this offseason is Jadeveon Clowney, who I think it'll be similar to last year when he finally finds someone looking for his services. Remember, he didn't sign until late in the summer last year with the Titans, and that turned out to be a disaster. He was looking for big money. He probably got more than he deserved. I think this year he probably will be more likely to take a one-year deal to prove it to somebody, because last year was such a disaster for him, but still talented guy. And if you get him on a 1-year deal, a 1-year prove-it deal, he'll be motivated. And we know a motivated Clowney is a dangerous Clowney. And so we'll see what happens there. But I said all of that to say this. This is really interesting to me. Of my top 23, 5 of the 7 players left are in the top 10. You got one, and 3 of them are wide receivers. 1 is Kenny Golladay. 2 is Trent Williams. 5 is Will Fuller the 5th. 7th is Anthony Harris, safety from the Vikings. And 9th is Juju Smith-Schuster, wide receiver from the Steelers. So for me, looking at this list and seeing what's left and having 3 of the top 10 be wide receivers is interesting. And I'm going to read you a tweet from Diana Rossini, who covers the NFL for ESPN, and she tweeted this out earlier today. She said, and I quote, "Just spoke to a free agent wide receiver to find out what's going on with all the receivers still unsigned. He said," and this is the receiver that she was texting with, "the receiver market is really bad right now." Closed quote. So what that essentially says to me, and I had a tweet that I put out earlier today that essentially said, and I can't remember verbatim what the tweet was, but it was something to the effect of, I think it was oversaturated market plus overinflated sense of value plus reduced cap equals bad market for wide receivers. And you know, one of the funny things is when you look at the receivers, Golladay, Fuller, and Juju Smith-Schuster, all of them are probably looking to demand number 1 wide receiver money, but yet the only one of those guys that is probably a true number 1 wide receiver is Kenny Golladay. And again, as I've mentioned, there's a debate to be had on that. If you're going to command true number 1 wide receiver money, it should be a consensus that you're that guy. And after the season he turned in last season, there are people, obviously injury-riddled season, and keep this in mind, Kenny Golladay turned down the Lions' offer of a long-term deal last offseason that would have paid him in the $18 to $19 million per year range down. He turned that money down last year, seeking to hit free agency and make more than that. And what he's essentially done is he's cost himself millions upon millions of dollars, because the reason he's unsigned is because he's not getting anywhere near that kind of money. He'd be lucky to even get $14 million a year. What teams are essentially saying is, you got to take Corey Davis type money. You got to take 13 and a half per year. That's not even close to what he was offered last year by the Lions. And so now he's kicking himself. And that's the market that we're in. If I'm these receivers, I'm taking a 1-year deal. I'm taking a 1-year deal. I'll take a 1-year, $12 million contract. I'll take a 1-year, $12.5 million contract that with incentives can get up to 15, 16, 17 million. And then I'll try this again next year when presumably the cap goes back up. There'll be more money to spend. And I'm hoping to have a monster year and have teams look at me differently next year when I'm trying this next time around. So if I'm Kenny Golladay, Will Fuller, you're coming off of a year where you were suspended. I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to get everybody to understand what my true value is. So I just want a 1-year deal. I just want to prove it. I still want you to pay me, but I want to prove it. So I think that this wide receiver market is really interesting, because as I just read to you what Diana Rossini was told by a player looking, and again, that's not including a guy like Curtis Samuel, who's also in this mix as a receiver that's available. I mean, there are a ton of receivers that's still out there. And that's the thing, is this was a robust wide receiver market. I've talked about guys already getting signed like Corey Davis. John Ross has already been signed. There are other options out there. Marvin Jones has been signed. You're going to see many more guys. John Brown got released, so that's another name added to the mix. We talked about Emmanuel Sanders getting signed. Like, there are other options available so that I don't have to overpay you to come here and be a stud for me. I can pay another guy a lot less to come in and give me what I think I need at the receiver position. So it's going to be interesting to see if these players kind of resign to the fact that the money that they thought they were getting isn't coming and that they've got to do something else. So that's going to be something worth noting tomorrow as the new league year actually takes place. Do we get a Kenny Golladay signing? Do we get a Will Fuller the fifth signing? Do we get a Juju Smith-Schuster signing? Do we get a signing of Curtis Samuel? Do we get one of these big wide receiver shoes to drop? Does one of these dominoes finally fall and kind of set off a chain reaction? Because if Kenny goes first, then I think everybody else falls in line. If somebody else goes, like Corey Davis stepped out of line and said, look, I'm not waiting on y'all to get my bread. The Jets said, hey, you worth 12 and a half? He said, that sounds good to me. He signed the deal. He wasn't waiting. Somebody may have to step out of line to get their bread. If they want to wait on Kenny Golladay, they can, to see what he gets. He kind of sets the template. Because you don't want to go out here taking an $11 million deal only for Kenny to sign for 16 and you're saying, shit, I could have got 14 and a half then. So you kind of want to see what happens. But I don't know if that money's coming. I don't think any of those receivers are going to get a penny over 15. Which, when this process first started, there was this thought process that somebody could get 16, 17. You could be looking at 13, 14 realistically now. And that's crazy because Corey Davis is making 12 and a half per year. And all of these guys are better than Corey Davis. All of them are, to me. So I want to see what happens. That's really interesting to me. But anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got a comment here at the end. JCamman99 says, rank these quarterbacks: Ryan Fitzpatrick, Andy Dalton, Tyrod Taylor. For me, I would take Andy Dalton. I would then go Ryan Fitzpatrick and then Tyrod Taylor. I'm not a massive Tyrod Taylor fan. He is a massive game manager, even to a lesser degree than Alex Smith and Teddy Bridgewater. And that's hard to even fathom, but I would take Dalton first. At this point of his career, though, probably would prefer Ryan Fitzpatrick, to be honest with you. But Andy Dalton had, at one point in his career, was a bona fide starter and a damn good one. At one point, he was having an MVP caliber season. Not saying he was going to win it, but he was having an MVP caliber season. I want to say it was either 15 or 16, and then he broke his hand. So there were times where Andy Dalton was a top flight quarterback in this league. We can never say the same thing for Ryan Fitzpatrick, but if you ask me now, with Dalton at the age that he's at, the mobility becoming very limited, I'd probably take Ryan Fitzpatrick, to be honest with you, at this point, over Andy Dalton. But that's nor here nor there. To answer your question, 3 years ago, it'd be Dalton, Fitzpatrick, Tyrod Taylor. Right now, as we sit here today, it's Fitzpatrick, Dalton, and then Tyrod Taylor. So, with that said, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on the show. I really do appreciate you guys kicking it with me on the show. Again, as we chopped it up late night, kind of wanted to let everything happen, dust settle, smoke clear. I'm going to check Twitter real quick one more time and socials just to make sure that nothing has happened of note before we get out of here. And looks like nothing has happened. So I'm going to keep it pushing. We'll be back tomorrow for the podcast. And we will also more likely than not have a show on the draft. And we'll be talking defensive ends this week. So look forward to that as well. But in any event, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. I thank you guys for joining me once more. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And hit the like button if you haven't already done so. Over 350 of you still out there. 166 likes. I love it. Want more of it. Let's get it over $170, $175, and let's kind of push towards 200 on the way out the door. With that said, I thank you guys for chopping it up with us. Look forward to kicking it with you guys. And I hope that you guys have a great rest of your night. And I look forward to you guys kicking it with me tomorrow as we will talk about more free agency and the start of the new league year. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, on the 146th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Until next time, I'm your man Louie T, signing off, saying God bless, good night.
Louie.